Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. This is the Science Dispatch podcast. As you can tell, I'm using my late night NPR smooth jazz voice. What do you call a DJ, a disc jockey?
That used to be. I don't think that's a term anymore.
Yeah,
disc jockey.
A digital jockey. I don't know. Welcome to Science Dispatch. We're going to talk about Tylenol and pharma ads today.
Welcome to the show. Cameron English, the Nightbird.
Yeah, I should introduce us. My name's Cameron English, like it is every week. That handsome young man, Dr. Chuck Dinnerstein, Director of Medicine at the American Council on Science and Health. It's going to be an interesting day. It's been an interesting month, Chuck. I was just telling you off air, I'm just flabbergasted at the fact that we have to talk about Tylenol and autism because the world is what it is.
It's all crazy. Cray.
Oh, boy. Okay. Yeah. So you wrote a story for the website almost a month ago now. This is how long this has been going on. Just the background. There has been this hubbub from RFK Jr. and the administration more generally about they've been hinting at the fact that there's going to be a major breakthrough, and they're going to discover the etiology of autism, and they've been poo-pooing the idea that genetics is behind it in any significant way, and they're starting to float the idea that there's environmental exposures, right? The classic, not the gold standard. That's a bad phrase to use. The classic one, of course, is vaccines, but he seems to be broadening his scope a little bit, and now it's Tylenol, and there's all kinds of strange theories about it.
Well, it's interesting because, as an environmental lawyer, which is his background, environmental contaminants play a big role in his view of the world and his entire legal career. So that, I guess, would be no surprise that we've turned there. But to say that months ago that they were going to tell us about the cause of autism was a level of hubris that was unimaginable. But there we are.
Yeah. So the basis for this, such as it is, the scientific basis for this concern was it's not even a meta-analysis. It's a review article that was published a few weeks ago that you broke down in your article. And they went through, I don't know if it was all, but they went through a significant amount of the literature looking at the health effects of Tylenol on, or at least its contribution to neurological disorders like ADHD and autism. And, as a layman, I'm reading through this and I'm underwhelmed, to say the very least. Just the quality of the data here, the sort of speculative leaps they have to make, talking about, well, it might be this mechanism or it might be this one, it could be related to inflammation, blah, blah, blah. No one has any idea, basically. And as you were telling me, they basically go, be careful, right? Follow your doctor's advice. Use as little as you need to. More research needed, right? It's the same story, no matter the topic.
So I mean, the problem is that as the background, probably 50% or more pregnant women take acetaminophen, and occasionally I will lapse into calling it Tylenol because that's the brand name of the most popular version, for the relief of aches and pains during pregnancy. And that has raised some speculative concern. Now, when it comes to treating the aches and pains and fever that come on during pregnancy, there is no safer alternative than acetaminophen, period, end of the discussion. So the women are faced with the choice of, as the president said, toughing it out or taking some of the acetaminophen. The study that looks at this was not a meta-analysis. It did not look at solely studies of acetaminophen on humans, but it looked at acetaminophen on humans and rodents and cells. So in that sense, we would have to say this is fair. This is kind of along the lines of what the EPA or the FDA would do when they were doing a toxicology study, which is look across the entire spectrum of biologic phenomena. But to then draw conclusions about humans starts to become a little bit iffy. So using that particular version of meta-analysis. They wound up looking at predominantly studies on ADHD. And they found in that case that there was a possible positive link to ADHD. For autism, for which they had less than half as many studies, there was a more tenuous association. But this is what the federal government has decided to bring forward as the definitive reason for the moment as to what causes autism. But it leaves us with the dilemma of what's a mother to do when she has a headache or pain, or more importantly, a fever, because we know that high temperatures during pregnancy can result in congenital disabilities. And so we need to do something to bring down the fever. And acetaminophen, again, as I said, is the safest alternative we have to doing that. So the women, once again, are being blamed for autism, and they're caught in that damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. The other point, and then we can go back and forth a little bit about this, is that the American College of Gynecology and Obstetrics, which has been writing about this for some time, has said basically we don't know whether there's a link. We're not sure. So use the drug wisely. Use it when you think it's necessary and in the smallest amount for the shortest period of time. And what have the Brain Trust in Washington come up with? Use the drug for the least amount of time at the smallest possible dose. And there we are. Just the same advice that we would have gotten 3 months ago is what we're left with today. Except, and we maybe talk about this now, or we can talk about it another day, they're pushing now leucovorin as a possible cure.
Maybe just tell people what that is and briefly how it works, because I'm sure they're hearing it in the headlines and they may not know what it is.
Leucovorin is a folininic acid. It's a variation on folate. We know that folate is an important metabolite, I'll call it that, during pregnancy. People that have folate deficiencies have various neurological injuries, classically a neural tube defect, spina bifida, that kind of thing. So we know that folate is important. And there are some very small studies of 40 or 50 or 60 people that show that there's been some improvement in speech when children along this spectrum of diseases are given leucovorin, are getting folate supplements. The first problem of all is that a lot of the children that are being evaluated had a documented folate deficiency. And so it's not surprising that if you gave them a folate, there might be some improvement. But there's very little evidence at this point that giving leucovorin to somebody that is folate normalized, just for sake of a term, is going to show any kind of improvement. So we're off and running on the, I know I'm going to hear about this, this is the ivermectin of autism has arrived.
This is the horse paste of neurological disorders.
I guess, and you watching them contort themselves. This is a drug that has not been marketed because it's been replaced by other drugs for 25 years that they now want to bring back. And, it's just craziness.
Yesterday, I didn't watch the whole press conference because I just couldn't bring myself. I'm not masochistic enough. But the part that I watched that was concerning to me is I heard the president say, if your kid has a fever, just tough it out. Just power through it. And, as a father of young children, fever can be very serious. If your kid has a high fever, you're talking about potentially, I don't want to oversell this, but very serious consequences if it's not treated, right? In an adult, someone who's fully grown and healthy, sure, I've heard Paul Offit say, just tough out the fever because that's your immune system trying to kill the infection.
Yes.
But for a 2-year-old, no, that's very bad advice. That's very harmful.
Oh, it's bad advice for the kid. But remember, we're talking now about pregnant women.
Yes, but I'm moving the goalpost, so to speak, to what was said. Yes, you're right. Maybe to put a button in that or a bow on that, however you say it. My brain's not working today. The evidence for this is speculative. I don't even know how to assign a grade to it. It's just bad, right? We have a lot of the data in that paper was self-reported. You had women saying, I took this much Tylenol for this long. My kid has autism. Well, how do you know? I just know, right? It's all self-reported. So you can't combine that with biomarker studies or cell culture studies. You can't mix those together, right? It's like apples and rocket ships. It doesn't make sense. You can't.
That was the methodology they were trying to do, which was to bring the apples and oranges together in one glorious aggregate,
right?
To discuss. No, you're absolutely right. It is like many of the things I think that are starting to go on in the world of Maha, if I could put it there, which is a great deal of show with very little underneath. I mean, putting the dog and pony show of the press conference aside, what did they tell us? They told us to continue doing what the obstetricians and the gynecologists have been recommending for the last several years. Now they're going to send a letter out to all the doctors who don't treat pregnant women so that we are all aware of this. That's fine. It's very much like when they send us letters about, watching out for pain meds for doctors that don't prescribe them. And they're going to have some public service announcements, and they're going to go do a victory lap. But they're not going to have made any significant dent in this. And I would say one other thing about the leucovorin. I have a lot of empathy for the parents that have a child with autism that's significantly disabled. And there are not a great number of good treatments available. So leucovorin gives them hope. And there's an advantage to that from a clinical side, unless it turns out to be a false hope. But we've seen this time and again. We've seen this is not an unusual response by the federal government. We only have to look back at the drugs that they have approved for dementia that show very little impact. In the same setting, when there's very little to offer, we offer hope in the form of a pill.
Again, so I think as we wrap this up here, the purpose of the press conference and all this hubbub was really just to soften people up to the idea that there's some environmental exposure that's causing or contributing to autism. I really think, and again, I'm speculating, I don't know the motives, but just looking at it, that's what seems to be going on here. Is they're just, as you said, right? The recommendations haven't changed. There's this drug that's been on the market for 2+ decades. It may or may not make a significant difference, right? They're just, right, they're setting the stage for him to say something else about autism and some other pharmaceutical product. I won't use the V word.
It's probably true. I mean, I'm waiting for the first set of class action lawsuits to be filed against acetaminophen. Now, J&J spun this drug off a long time ago. This is made by some, other organization that does not have the deep pockets of J&J. So it'll be interesting to see whether, the attorneys will now take this article and the statements from the FDA and take them to court. I suspect that's coming in the next few weeks.
Public health triumphs once again. Very good. Okay, well, if you want a little more balanced perspective on what's going on here, go read Chuck's article. It's on the website. It's called Acetaminophen in Pregnancy Relief or Risk. This is really good stuff, Chuck. I think this is where you shine as a writer, just sort of laying out the facts, giving people the context that everyone else tends to forget in their rush to break out in hives in response to Kennedy or to defend him. What gets overlooked is, well, should I take this or not? And I think you are doing the physician's job of giving people the info they need. So go check out that article. Follow us on social media. It's at ACSH.org on X. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. ACSH Matter of Facts, hosted by our colleague Anna Delaski. She's doing very short videos, sort of summarizing our content and answering your questions about science and health. Go investigate, go subscribe, like. We really appreciate it. You'll learn some great stuff there as well. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time.